Manchester by the Sea is one of the most moving, impressive and masterful films that is still quite overlooked by most people. This film does something that a lot of movies try but only few achieve. It feels totally real. But there is one thing that makes this a hard watch for a lot of people. It's a truly sad film dealing with grief, loss, death, tragedies. But here's what makes Manchester by the Sea a true masterpiece. What we can learn about life from these kinds of tragic stories and why sad filmmaking can be so rewarding. Manchester by the Sea tells the story of Lee Chandler, who is an introverted, depressed man who lives life as a loner, like distant from all other people and his surroundings. After his brother suddenly dies, he's asked to take care of his teenage nephew that takes him back into places, memories, and people of the past he ran away from. At first look, this movie is really nothing spectacular. It's about regular people that live through a quite unspectacular story. And the visuals look quite colorless and bland. But Manchester by the Sea is a movie that draws you in slowly. The camera rarely moves, even rarely goes into any close-ups. The storytelling moves in between the story and flashbacks back and forth in a really unspectacular way. And it's a slow film. I mean, we don't find out until the middle of the film why the protagonist behaves the way he behaves. But let me tell you that this is one of the most masterful movies when it comes to the screenplay. I've also read the screenplay. It's one of the best I've ever read. Each dialogue line, each shot, each cut is in its right place. Combine all of that with the performances and you get something that is as lifelike as you rarely see in a film. What this film is so great at doing is realism. Now, a lot of commercial, like Hollywood films, try realism with comedies and dramas by telling just average, regular toned down stories, making this warm-hearted, comfortable, feel-good hangout films. On the other hand, we have like art house films who aim to create realism by gritty filmmaking, a lot of handheld, a lot of emotional distance from the characters, a rough script, improvisation. Manchester by the Sea goes none of the obvious ways you can go if you want to make your film realistic. The first great aspect of this kind of realism are the visuals. As I said, they're really toned down. They look like they aren't really color graded, like really naturalistic. Most shots in this film are from the perspective like you're standing with the actors in the room. All the sets, costumes, and even the way the scenes are lit, everything looks very natural. But even the most realistic and natural aspects of this film feel like that because the filmmaking is so masterful. And if anyone that knows a thing or two about the way films are made knows that a film set is the most unnatural and artificial place you can be. So if you're seeing this film, keep that in mind, that like hundreds of people are standing behind the camera and the whole process of getting this film made is mostly logistical, technical and methodical, and the film drives the realism further in the way it's written. Like Manchester by the Sea has the most impressive, emotional, interesting and creative use of flashbacks that I've ever seen. The way one scene flows to the next, it's like real human memories coming back, and it's just a beautiful composition. There's like a scene in the middle of the film where we find out a lot about the protagonist in just one scene. It's set in a lawyer's office and intercut with his own painful personal memories. I mean, that's just one of the best film scenes ever put on film, probably. One thing movies aren't good at is showing the inner lives of characters. That is the total contrast to something like novels. Novels mostly consist of inner monologues. You don't have that in films, and that's a thing that most films actually even don't try to do, to bring you into the inner life of a character, because anything you can see in a film is the outwards expression in dialogues and actions. But this film right here really draws you into the character in a very impressive way. That is because the filmmakers have a huge respect for the imagination, intelligence and emotions of us as the audience. Now, what purpose does all of that great filmmaking serve? This is a serious movie about grief, loss, guilt, forgiveness. Why should we put ourselves through 2 hours of this tragic stuff? We in our lives are going to be confronted with pain, loss, grief, regret at one point or another. And when we experience pain, we kind of want to make sense of it all. And in that, there are stories, there is meaning that we tell ourselves. And Manchester by the Sea is ultimately about the dangers that come if you tell yourself the wrong kinds of stories about your circumstances, past events, and yourself, how crippling these wrong kinds of stories can become. Lee Chandler in this film, without giving really anything away about his story that is revealed in the film, is dealing with so much grief and regret. And the movie takes the concept seriously of like moving forward isn't that easy in a lot of cases. And it's really a lot of care that goes into the portrayal of these characters. And within all the darkness of Manchester by the Sea, the film still finds moments of light, of humor, not jokes, but of real humor that comes out of the situation that's just really funny and great. And at the end of the film, the protagonist ultimately isn't able to move past his pain, crippling what role he can play in his future. And as a Christian, I just look at films like these and wonder how differently the stories would turn out if the characters knew that they were under a good and merciful God that has forgiveness for each and one of us, no matter what we've done in our lives. Manchester by the Sea isn't a Christian film. It has a few mentionings of the protagonist and the family being Catholic, but it's mostly used just for humor and just a small part of the film. There are characters who claim to be Christian but ultimately fail at living like Christians and really walking by faith and not by sight, and they're really flawed people that aren't fully committed to their faith. And the lack of God, meaning and purpose is ultimately where a lot of the pain the characters are feeling is living at. Matter of fact is, if we make mistakes, not all people will forgive us, but God always will. That's why we can't base our self-esteem and self-worth on the opinions of other people or on other people in general, and we can only base it on what God thinks of us. It's easy to say that if there's no God, I can just do whatever I want without being accountable for it. But what about the people that suffer? How cruel is it to say to them, okay, your life, some people in life just suffer and die, and some people don't suffer and die, and that's about it. The Bible says the contrary is the case. Everything has meaning, even your pain and suffering. And just like the characters of Manchester by the Sea, life indeed does confront us with things we aren't able to figure out by ourselves. And here's why we can hope even in the darkest, most desperate situations. In the book of Corinthians, we can read, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it." Realizing that you can't do everything on your own is the first step into recognizing that you are a part of something bigger and your life isn't for yourself. Your life serves a bigger purpose, and it doesn't matter what you've done, you are called to fulfill your purpose. You are called to serve other people. It doesn't matter how messed up your life is. And it doesn't matter how dark our situation becomes, there is always a way out. Even if we can't find it ourselves, God will show us the way out and into new light. Well guys, Manchester by the Sea is a really great and masterful film, and if you've seen it before, it just gets better and better with each viewing. And if you're able to see it, keep these biblical thoughts in mind. I mean, stuff like this, for me, studying the Bible and then seeing films, it really gives me a new perspective, a deeper look into movies and the stories they tell, and a new appreciation for great filmmaking like these, even if it isn't Christian, just to think about, okay, how different would it be if these characters believed in God, ultimately making us as viewers recognize that even our pain serves a purpose. All right, guys, this is it for now. I thank you so much for taking the time to watch my review right here. I wish you all a blessed day and hope to have you back in my next video.